Hey friends, welcome back to Men on Mission. My name is Isaac, and today we're going to be talking about becoming a financially wise man. I know a lot of us have complicated relationship with money and finances in general. Maybe we haven't been super responsible or wise with it in the past, and that can put us in kind of an awkward state where we don't really want to talk about it. It's just this piece of anxiety that looms over our shoulders. We know that eventually it's going to catch up to us, but we just don't have the tools we need in order to really take control of that aspect of our lives. So whether you feel like you've been good with your money in the past or maybe not so much, maybe you've put a lot of intention into it, and maybe you've just been relatively apathetic, making sure that there's just enough for you to get by. Today we're going to be talking about some key principles that are going to get you on a good path financially and that are ultimately going to boost your life and your mission. The first thing we got to do here is to reject despair and pessimism. Maybe you haven't been super responsible with your money in the past. Maybe you haven't put a lot of intention into it. Perhaps you're in some sort of debt and you feel like, man, my financial situation just isn't good. I don't see a lot of hope here. I want you to reject that despair mentality. That will get you nowhere. And ultimately, I do believe you have time to turn things around if you hone into what God has provided for us in His Word in terms of being responsible and wise with what we're given. And so today, reject that despair and hone into these things. Keep up hope. There is hope here. Now, when we talk about money, my mind immediately goes to this word stewardship. And maybe you haven't heard that word. You don't really understand, okay, what does it mean to be a steward? Ultimately, what we need to understand is that everything we're given is a gift from God. And it's our responsibility to steward that to the best of our ability for His glory. When I think about stewardship, my mind goes to Matthew 25 when it talks about the parable of the talents. It talks about a man who's going on a journey. He has 3 servants, and to each of them he gives a different number of talents. Talents were like the currency in that day. So he gave 5 to one, 2 to another, and 1 to another. The man who had the 5 talents went and traded them, and he earned 5 more talents. The one who had been given 2 talents traded and got 2 more talents as well. But the one who had received only 1 talent dug in the ground, buried it in the ground, and when the master came back, he said, "Hey, master, I have this talent for you." And the master was like, "Okay, what are you doing? I could have just put it in the bank and I would have gotten a better return on your investment." Not only does this have spiritual implications, but it also has monetary implications too with what we should be doing with our money. To steward it in such a way where we're not just digging a hole in the ground and putting it there, but we're rather using it to let it multiply in order for us to serve others. Okay, enough with the theory. Let's get to the practical applicational steps here. Please note, I'm not a financial advisor, so take these with a grain of salt. 3 things to begin with right now. Evaluate your debt. What kind of debt do you have? Are you on some sort of plan to pay that back? You got to be addressing it and be honest with yourself about where you're at. The second thing is developing an emergency fund. So we're looking at 3 to 6 months. People have different numbers in mind, but 3 to 6 months of what it takes to sustain you and your family. That's what you want to have in the bank to make sure that, hey, if you're laid off from a job, if something happens, that's there for you. And the last thing is to conduct a spending audit. You want to make sure that you're understanding, okay, what kind of money's coming in and what money's going out. A lot of people are just kind of apathetic towards their finances. They're not really sure. Maybe they're in a comfortable space where they can spend what they want to and it's not too much of an issue. But if you get put in a tighter space, you want to make sure you have the habits of keeping a track on what's going on. Ultimately, that you can know, hey, I'm stewarding this to the best of my ability, and I know what's going on with my finances. Okay, now that you got those 3 things out of the way, we need to be asking ourselves, what do we do with our paycheck? Assuming you have a job, hopefully. 4 things here. We need to understand our expenses. We need to understand our savings. We're going to be sowing, and we're going to be giving. The first thing we got to talk about is giving. Now, people have different understandings and beliefs about how much you should give. Maybe it's 10%, maybe it's more than that. Is it net or is it gross? But this is where we began. I think 10% is a great number to begin with, and saying, hey, I'm going to give to my local church. I'm going to give to a local mission. Those are the areas where I want this to be going. Expenses. You want to simplify your expenses, cut out unnecessary expenses. Like when you're doing that little audit of what's going on. Maybe you haven't watched Netflix in a while. Maybe you shouldn't be even supporting Netflix. I don't know. That's up to you. What I want you to do is keep track of your expenses and your income to create a budget. And one of the great ways that I've found to do this that's free is a link in my description from Deborah Ho. It is on Google Sheets, and you can set it up to customize to your specifications, and that way you can input your expenses on a monthly basis as time goes on, and then at the end of the month you can take a look and see what's going on, and that information is going to be so helpful for you to understand, okay, do I need to up my income in some way to make bill payments, or okay, do we need to be cutting down spending in this particular category? I found it to be so beneficial, so hit the link in my description. It's not an affiliate link or anything. It's just free for you to use, and I highly recommend it. A lot of people in my family use it. Now let's talk about saving. I know some of you are spenders and some of you are savers, and if you're a spender, this might be a little bit more challenging for you, but I think it's so important that we hone down this, and it'll actually give you so much more freedom in your life to spend on the things that you think are good to spend on when you know, okay, I got my savings covered, as opposed to kind of the willy-nilly, I don't really know what's going on, but I want this, and there's a sense of guilt and maybe anxiety connected with your spending. You don't want that. So that's why we focus on, okay, our giving and our saving, so we know what's going on. I personally haven't found it very helpful when people throw out percentages in financial videos like save 30% of your income or 25%. That's going to need to be a discernment process for you and your family, your spouse, to see what are we going to do with what we have, right? Like, okay, we're giving this much, we're saving this much, we're investing this much. That's the next part, the sowing. What do we need to be saving for? I think that should play a good part in it too. Is there a particular thing that you want to be, maybe you're saving it for a house or a car, and just being wise with it. I always err on saving more than you think. Like, ultimately that is going to be really, really positive for you. I think there's a helpful verse for us in Proverbs 21:20. It says, precious treasure and oil are in a wise man's dwelling, but a foolish man devours it. So are we going to devour all of our savings just because we want that instant gratification, or we want this, or we want that? No. We're going to steward what we have. We're going to save because we don't know what could happen. We want to be wise with it and be prepared. And I think that little buffer allows you a certain sense of, okay, we're okay. Like, for now, not that my hope is in my savings account, but ultimately wisdom and responsibility does provide a certain sense of peace and comfort because we're walking in wisdom. So we talked about giving and expenses and saving, and the last thing is sowing or investing. Number one, I think if you are young, your key investment should be in yourself. What are the things that you need to spend money on in order to develop your skills or create your business? Or maybe you're looking to become, a content creator and you want to get a camera or some lighting equipment, or you want to get a particular tool so you can learn how to do something with your hands. These are all things that I think are really beneficial that we shouldn't neglect. And so when we're looking at saving so much, if you're just saving and saving and saving and saving, and you're not focusing on the investment part of that, what is that savings going to do? It's not going to do much for you. It's a good buffer, right? That emergency fund, making sure that we're prepared for the future if something happens. But at the same time, we should be utilizing a bunch of that to go into our sowing account, our investment, investing in ourselves. And beyond that, if you're in Canada, you can look into a TFSA, a tax-free savings account. That's what I'm a part of. I know there's other things in the States which I'm not as familiar with. I'm sure there's plenty of videos on YouTube that can get you connected with that. I hope you guys got something from this video. If you did, can you pass it on to another guy friend in your life who's going to benefit from this video? If this kind of content encourages you, inspires you, I didn't ask you to subscribe down below because I'm putting out new videos every single week. If you're interested in supporting what I'm doing right now, you can go to my Patreon, which is the Daily Disciple Patreon, but we're all connected here, so I'd love it if you support me on there, and that way I can continue to make this content. Until next time, let's continue to encourage and strengthen one another to lead and love well. God bless.